It's time to get these cleaned up and working. Obviously, these two are going to be used at the new warehouse at work for our preparation area for the machines. And this is the one that I'm keeping for the collection because it has the GE logo on it. And like I said, these two are unique because they have the actual NEMA tags on them. This one does not. I believe it used to be right here, but someone took it off. Anyway, let's open them up and see what's inside. So here's the insides. Note that this one is different than the other two slightly. If we take a look at the sticker here, let me turn it over for you so you can have a better view than me seeing it upside down. What does that say? There's a date code somewhere. Anyway, it's upside down. This one, there's its tag. And this one here, we have its tag in here, but we need to take this out first. Oops. And then we can view its information. Now, if I am correct here, this one says September of 2000. And these say, oh, there it is, March of 94. I don't know why it's just hard for me to find it upside down. But there's the two tags, and you can see, I wonder if this one also had, a cover at one point in time, but it's been removed, or maybe that was not needed at the time. Also, we have some difference in the fonts here compared to the two, the spacing and all of that. Another interesting thing to note is, it's still upside down. Well, I suppose you could still read it. Anyway, back to the correct way. We have clips holding the glass on with this model. And on these two, it's just kind of glued in place, or something's holding it there. That's another interesting difference. Looks like we have the same style of ballast, maybe just manufactured a little differently. They all have the GE capacitors in them. This one's definitely a lot cleaner inside. Okay, so, well, what I'm going to do is, these obviously have cords on them right now. Well, I have plenty of appliance cords that came off of washers and whatnot, so I'm just going to remove these wires and put a new cord with a, nicely molded end from the factory on these, and we'll go from there. So here's the two of them cleaned up and ready to go to work. The one with the bulb in it has a cord and it's all wired up. I haven't tested either of them yet, but I'm sure they work. This one does not have a cord, and I do have bulb for it. It's sitting on the workbench right now because I want to use it in the other fixture just to give it a test. But that one will get a cord when it goes to the shop because that's where I have many, many more. So one's all ready. They do sit nice when you put them like this. You can kind of use it as like a construction light or something. It just sits on the floor. It's got its weight there. You got a handle, and it kind of points it up at a little bit of an angle. It'd be nice for that. Of course, this one here is the one that I'm keeping for the collection. It has the GE logo, and I just want to use this bulb to test it, and then that bulb's going to go into that fixture. But since this is a regular metal halide, or a probe start metal halide fixture, this does mercury vapor bulbs. So the next time I go home and see my parents, I'm going to go through my bulbs and find some 250 watt mercury vapor bulbs, pack them up really well, and send them out this direction to put in this fixture. Because to me, mercury vapor is always way more interesting than many of the other lighting than a metal halide here. Of course, the metal halide bulb puts out more lumens, but I'd love to have a mercury vapor fixture that's 250 watts that is this small. So, of course, we will wire this one up now. Got the new capacitors in, so we'll go ahead and replace the one that's missing. I can, of course, replace all the others. I got enough for doing that. But for the moment, I'm just going to replace the one that was bad. If the others start to go bad, then I'll replace the rest of them. But for its purposes of running just a single program at work, that's fine for now. Also noted last time, and this time too, that the heatsink was moving around on the top of the CPU here. Definitely didn't have a good contact. So I'm going to try to clean that off and put some new thermal compound on there as well while we have this apart. New capacitor installed. Now we're on to the CPU. Got it all cleaned up and we're back installed. I just have to make a comment about how dumb this front piece is. Like, first of all, if you want to take it off, you can't. It doesn't want you to. Like, you have all these clips over here. Oh, you want to get to that one? Nah. There's this thing in the way, so, you know, that one's going. This one you can reach. For whatever reason, the whole thing's separated. And also, what in the world is this little paddle thing here that locks and unlocks? What is the purpose of that? What am I locking? Like the CD area or the power button? I don't understand. It makes no sense. Naturally, because I have no idea what I'm doing, I cut a hole here, and that allowed this paddle or flag to come out. And then, of course, there's this like clip here that was too long, so I had to break that. And then come to find out, this whole thing comes out. It's like a key or something, and it just goes in here. Why it wouldn't come out the first time, I don't know. But I still have no idea. Let me see here. What in the world the purpose of it is. I can't get the camera in there. You can see where it comes through. It doesn't really move or do anything. I don't know. It's gone now, so I'm happy about that. To be real about it though, how in the world would you open this up without breaking it to take your drives apart? In fact, look at this. It even took off the cover of the one drive. Well, so we see if it works. Oh boy, it's going to count all the memory. Well, like I said, it's 128, so we're not going to go up too far at least. It's probably looking for something to boot. Yep, memory size error, because I did change it, I do believe. And we're back to compact here again. Yeah, of course, there's no keyboard. Well, anyway, we at least know that it gets here. Move back inside now that we're done cleaning it up. So we'll get one of these hard drives in its caddy here. We'll get that installed, and then we'll go ahead and start installing Windows 98. Well, we got Windows 98 second edition installing here. Well, it's actually formatting the hard drive. As you can see, it's installed. And everything seems to be running okay. So we'll just go through the setup process. So while that's going on, I picked up a whole bunch more RAM for these things. I think it's just SD RAM. I forget the actual name for this style. PC 133, PC 100, whatever. Those two kinds. A whole bunch of 512 megabyte and 256 megabyte sticks. Now I'm not entirely sure which of these computers will accept what. I think this one is 133. I'm not sure about these two though. So I'm going to take this one and we'll bring it over and see if we can put more RAM in it. Picked up a variety of sticks here from the used computer place for a pretty good price because they have a huge bin of these things. You just kind of dig through it and find what you like. So we'll try some of them out in here. After trying out the RAM sticks in the computer you just saw, I found out that the 512 megabyte ones were not going to work in that particular machine. I also tried them in the compact and they wouldn't boot there either. However, they do boot in this machine right here. This weird, very tall machine with the ASUS sticker on it. So, looking online, this motherboard supports up to 2 gigabytes of RAM. So, using 512 megabyte modules is how you would do that. So I put one of those 512 megabyte modules in here just to try it out, and sure enough, it boots just fine. So the RAM sticks are fine, just those machines don't support that much memory in one stick or something or another. So no big deal. That's why we got the 256 megabyte sticks. But anyway, here we are with the last computer that we haven't really done much with. So last night I decided to, after getting the RAM working, take a look into this hard drive here and figure out what I could do with it. Well, I was able to get past the password and get into the machine itself, and there's not much on it really. It's just an install of Windows 2000 and some basic programs, and that's really about it. Nothing too interesting. So, the hard drive here, as you can see, I took it out because I wanted to figure out what it was. It was originally mounted up here. It just says Mac Store on it, but when I look it up, it's a 20 gigabyte hard drive. Just for whatever reason, they didn't write that on there. It's partitioned into 4 different partitions. 2 of them are 6 gigabyte, and the other 2 are smaller than that. I'm not sure why. I know that was a common thing back in the day, but we don't do that so much anymore. So whatever to that. So in the inside of this one, I'm not sure if we already took an in-depth look at it. I don't think we have. It's another slot 1 here with a little card that you could put the CPU on. I'm not sure what CPU it has. I thought for a minute it had a Celeron, but then sometimes it shows up as a Pentium, and half the time the motherboard wants to ask, what is in here? Do you know? So we'll figure that one out. There's also a screw sitting right there in the middle of the screen. Isn't that nice? But anyway, we at least know that the RAM works and everything else works. We have the graphics card here. I'm guessing it's a 3D effects, judging by that logo right there. Some type of sound card, and I'm sure a modem. Oh, and a Ethernet card below that. Okay, and then of course up top we have all kinds of space. This one is the most dirty out of all of them, as you can see. This particular one, well, obviously it works, but the fan here in the power supply, that don't work. It just goes ram, 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 and it just spins about 1 revolution a minute. It's super slow. So we'll figure that out. But here's our case. Now the one thing that I do want to see if I can get working is the megahertz display. I know that wasn't really supported with this motherboard that's in here, at least I don't think it was. But just to get it to power on and say something, I think would be pretty cool. So we'll mess around with that. And the fake lock I think is funny. Anyway, there is the last machine. This is the Windows 2000 machine, I guess we'll call it. So I'm gonna go ahead and part it out and clean it up. Got everything apart and cleaned up the case here. So we started doing that, and I was starting to clean up the power supply, and like I said, the fan here on the back is no good, so I decided to open it up. I don't know why I didn't take a video before I closed it back up. I don't even want to know why I closed it back up, because it's no good. Some of the capacitors in there are starting to bulge and leak out of the tops. So that's it for this thing. I think I have another one somewhere. That's no big deal, finding a simple power supply, especially when it's just, you know, something simple. It's not these old connectors that are ridiculous. So that shouldn't be too hard to just locate another one. Got those items cleaned up. They're just sitting there for the moment, because we're going to focus on the CPU here for a second. So we got the little adapter here for the socket 1, or slot 1. And we got our CPU. It definitely says Intel, and according to the jumpers, it's mostly set to auto and Intel and a single CPU, which, well, yeah, that's what it is. So there's the back, and here's the front. So I'll try to open it up and see what we got underneath. There's the bottom of the heatsink with this sticker pad thing. And here's our CPU. So it is a Pentium 3. I'm guessing it's 700 megahertz. And yeah, that's what we know about it. So I'm gonna clean this up and get some appropriate new thermal compound on here. All cleaned up, I don't know if that sticker was important or not, but I got rid of it because I thought it was kind of weird having a sticker that close to a hot source. Maybe it doesn't get that hot. I don't know. I got rid of it anyway. So now we just need some thermal compound and we'll put it back together. Fresh and clean. Motherboard is fitted back in and we're starting to put cards back in. We're all back together. Now we just need to find a much better power supply. The feet that were on here, these things, I'm not the biggest fan of. So I think I'll just put some different feet on there. It looks like it was an option actually at one point with these screw holes. But just some of those fabric floor pads I think will be fine. So now we just look for a new power supply. It's another day and it's time to take a look at this machine again. But as you know, it needs a power supply. So my friend here has a power supply that came out of his older gaming computer, and he upgraded to a bigger one. This should be perfectly fine for what we need. Of course, there's a lot of plugs on here that we can't really use, like the CPU plugs and SATA and whatnot, but this plug should still be the same. We just won't need to use this one. So we'll give it a try. Power supply installed. It'll be kind of nice having a big fan here to pull some of the heat away from here. It probably doesn't get that hot really. And you know, push it out the back. Look at all these cables we don't need. SATA, you know, for the CPU and the GPU and all that kind of modern stuff. We only need 2 cables. We just need the motherboard and the old Molex cable stuff for the floppy hard drive and disk drive. But of course you can get adapters that convert the SATA to Molex style power. I think I have a couple of those laying around. I'll have to look for them. Or maybe it was the other way around. It converts Molex to those. I'm not sure. Either way, I'm sure there's a way to get some more, or, you know, divide these up for extras. But there's one right here, so that's good enough for here. So we'll plug in everything and turn it on. Let's see what we get this time. Get some sound out of the speakers. And now we know what kind of processor it is. It's not a Celeron 466E or whatever. It's a 700 megahertz. So we will set that. And I don't know what else to set, so I guess we'll just do that. Well, gotta do the date and time. There we go, all booting up. Now it seems to be happier that it knows the right processor. Unfortunately, there's nothing on the desktop that I can show, but everything is working. Audio is working. The pictures that the previous owner has on here is working. So I mean, graphical wise, you know, that's fine too. So everything's good now. We have the correct processor set in the BIOS. So I think what we're gonna do is get some SSD action going on in here and see where we can go from there. Before we go ahead and try putting the SSD in here, I just wanted to load this thing up with probably too much memory, but we'll see if it boots up. Did find out that this stick right here does not work. Something isn't right with it, and even when it's in here all by itself, it just makes the computer beep. So interesting that it doesn't work, because it does have Hynix chips on it, which as far as I remember are pretty good quality, so I'm not sure what's wrong with it, but it's just no good. And it looks like the 2 gigs is booting into Windows. So while trying to install Windows 2000, I discovered a limitation of the fact that it cannot see a disk bigger than 131 gigs. Well, it can see the disk, it just won't let you partition it any bigger than 131 gigs for whatever reason. Reading online, it was some type of service pack thing, but this version I have here has service pack 4, so I'm not sure what's going on there. So I'm not going to use the 250 gigabyte SSD, and instead I found a 120 gigabyte hard drive. That'll be perfectly fine. Look at that, we even got the little hard drive mounted in there. Well, it's mounted on one side, but it keeps it at least suspended. and we're just formatting it up. It is pretty much seen correctly, so we're good there. And we're all set up. So I've been trying to get this machine to work here at work, and unfortunately the Windows 98 installation sees the hardware and interacts with it as it should, but the program does not see any of the hardware, and I have no idea why. I've tried all kinds of drivers and everything, but it's just not working. So what we're going to do is, I've got some screws here. I have another one of these hard drives, another 10 gig hard drive. I'm going to put Windows 2000 on it, and hopefully that will solve the problem. Here's its little setup in the corner. It's simply just going to be running a program, so nothing too fancy. So the Windows 2000 is working on here, and it works with our card software. The software actually finds the card reader, so that's wonderful. Had to replace the keyboard with this Gateway one I got for $2. The original one, the spacebar, didn't work, and I don't like the really small backspace, so this is much better. In fact, I think this is the same keyboard we had for our very first computer back in the day my dad used at home for work. Boy, that really flickers on the screen there. But the drivers for the card reader work just fine on here. They work just fine on Windows 98 too. Just for whatever reason, the program that uses the cards would not recognize that a card reader is present. It's real weird. And we should get a screen here. And there we go. Of course, I can uncheck that if I want to, but we'll just let it be for the moment. Can't be found. Well, it isn't lit up now, is it? So let me check the connection. After playing with the connections on the back, we got it lit up here. I wanted to try another card reader. I mean, this one lit up just fine. This one, as you can see, has a really yellowed wire on it. But that don't really matter. Let's try it again here. Okay, well, it looks like we're happy. So we'll go ahead and put our card in here, and then I'll type in the PIN, and we'll log in here, and there we go. So we got the program working. Boy, that's really flickery, so we're going to be done with that, but wonderful. This is what I wanted it for, and it's serving its purpose. Perfect.